revolution that is about to happen. A revolution that is going to change the manner in which this world exists and the manner in which this world operates from every possible conceivable dimension, be it political, be it financial, be it social. You are at the door of a revolution, whether you understand it or not. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما ولي الله الحجة ابن الحسن صاحب الأمر والزمان اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين آمين رب العالمين أما بعد أحبائي. Our lecture from yesterday, an introduction, to recap really quick so we can begin with today's discussion and get into the core of the bahath. We said yesterday in essence that the human being is in need of a purpose. You cannot live a life without having a purpose. An aimless life, because not having a purpose results in a person squandering the most valuable asset given to him, and that is time, which we said yesterday from Surah Al-Asr. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr. Tayyib. For in order to maximize the greatest asset given to us by Allah, yani time, we need to have a purpose. We need to have a mission in life. We need to be able to recognize and understand why we have been created and use this asset time wisely in order to fulfill the purpose of our existence. Tayyib, this is one. Number two, who decides what is the purpose of our existence? The one who created us. So we refer back to Surah Al-Dhariyat, where Allah Azza wa Jal says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create the jinn and the mankind except that they should be in a constant state of worship towards me. And we said very briefly yesterday, worship, ya'ani, you are living every breath of your life in compliance to the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every breath that you take, you are confirming to those acts that are wajib, and at a higher daraja mustahab, and with every breath that you take, you are refraining from that which is haram, and at a higher level from even that which is makruh. Therefore, if you reach this maqam, in essence, you have reached a state of perfection. So, from a logical perspective, if you were to arrange the premises together, your conclusion is that you have been created for the purpose of attaining perfection. Because when you are in a constant state of ibadah, in its wider meaning, not restricted to salat and the sawm with all due importance towards it, but your life value, every breath, every aspect of your life you are living in accordance to the rules and regulations and the sharia of Allah Azza wa Jal, you have attained the level of perfection. And it is this perfection that allows you to gain success in the dunya as well as the akhirah. So if the purpose of my existence is to seek perfection, then the next stage is for me to ask and to ponder and to search, What personal characteristics am I supposed to develop within myself in order to become the perfect being as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to? What personal characteristics do I need to cultivate within myself? From terms of my personality, from terms of my traits and my behaviors. What is very commonly known as personal development. And you find that this is a theme that is absolutely huge from the world of academics to the corporate world. How many you have graduates of universities with the best of the degrees, but when they come to their jobs, they fail because they lack, outside of a paper qualification, characteristics and traits on how to be successful. You find some of the best-selling books that you have within the markets today are books on self-development, on motivational skills or self-improvement. We don't need to go to Fulan bin Fulan and John Doe and Madri who, when Allah Azza wa Jal has given us a constitution in the Quran that allows us to develop ourselves in the best of manners. And these are characters, inshallah, we want to go through them, a whole bunch of them over the next 15 nights from the Quran. And you find that in addition to this bahath, discussion, being a discussion which is Quranic, as we said yesterday, it is also discussion from the Quran. You are able to mirror yourself, reflection into where you are. Ani, where I am in my life, what my characters, what my personalities are, I see them reflect in front of me like a mirror. And it is as if Allah is showing you yourself through the Quran, whether it is in a positive light or in a negative light. If it is in a positive light, we need to build. If it is in a negative light as well, we know where we have to improve. So if we understand this, Ahibba'i, if you like to follow the verses of the Quran that I'm going to reference through with your smartphones, or if you have brought your own personal Quran copies, ahlan wa sahlan, and if not, I think you're going to have the verses of the Quran on the PowerPoint above us. So the first character of a mu'min, basically what we're doing is we're looking at the characteristics that are outlined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that every mu'min must possess in order for you to attain perfection, happiness in the dunya and the akhirah. Characteristic number one, trait number one, you find the reference for this is Suratul Baqarah, verse number 153. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Tayyib, and you know when you read through these verses of the Quran, and even when you're looking at it from the slide on top, as we said yesterday, hadith of Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. In Shahrul Ramadan, the thawab for reciting one verse of Quran is equivalent to the thawab of an entire Khatmul Quran. فإنشاءالله مجلس هم بها ثواب إن شاء الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Allah Azza wa Jal says in Surah Al-Baqarah 153, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, O you who believe. The commanded directive, the attention is towards a group of people who are from the khawas, restricted khitaba. Sometimes you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya bani Adam. La, over here this is a khitab khas. People who have iman inside their heart. People who recognize that they're created for a purpose and they have to fulfill the purpose of their existence. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu ista'inu bis-sabri was-salat innallaha ma'as-sabirin. Allah Azza wa Jal says, O you who believe, ista'inu, seek inner strength through sabr, exercising patience, and number two, upholding the salat. Sabr is going to be a different topic. We want to concentrate on salat. Shufu, you see this, you attest this verse or something similar to this in Surah Al-Hamd. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Iyaka na'abudu wa iyaka nasta'een. By you only, Ya Allah, I seek inner strength. Ista'inu, One of the derivatives of the word ista'inu or the verb ista'inu is auna or ana, yani to seek strength. So what you are saying in this verse of the Quran, what Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, O you who believe, seek inner strength, empower yourself emotionally and psychologically through salat. If you keep this in mind, we will tie this with the conclusion. Tayyib. Before we continue with this, there is a subtopic and a sub-bahath, and you find that this is very logically and very, it's set out like a flow chart where you have subsystems that come in and subtopics that come in, and then they are all tied in together. And you find the Quran speaks in a manner which is a network. Ra'i' jiddan. You find the contents or the concept over here is the concept of salat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, seek inner strength through salat. Tayyib. Does this mean that everybody who recites salat is going to gain inner strength? Does it mean everybody who recites salat is on the right path and is going to gain salvation? Habibi, Allah Azza wa Jal says for us in the Quran, there are two types of people who recite salat. For those people who recite salat, there is one group that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises them. There is also another group of people who also recite salat, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala condemns them and rebukes them in the harshest manner possible. Ajib. Somebody who recites salat is being condemned by Allah. Yes, he's been condemned by Allah. Now let us see, Ani, let me see. I should speak for myself. Let me see. Which category of people am I in? Inshallah, I recite salat. Am I in the category? The people who don't recite salat ba'ad is a different category altogether. We're talking with believers, those who recite salat or those who try to uphold their salat. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about these people? Which category am I? The good or the bad? Look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. We start with the negative point and end with the positive one, inshaAllah. One example of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually condemns the people who recite salat. Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 58. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَإِذَا نَادَيْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. Are the verses on the PowerPoint? Are they on top? Inshallah, I'm speaking myself. We're together, no? Inshallah, this one we have decided with the EC that the structure of the majlis is different. So instead of you people asking the reciter questions, the reciter is going to ask you questions. So inshallah, this one's a little bit different. And before I forget, even before we continue, Alhamdulillah wa shukr for the young boy who gave the youth talk today. These are points that need to be acknowledged and they need to be appreciated publicly. It shows the development of a child. It shows the hard work of the madrasa. It shows the hard work of the parents. More importantly, it shows you the potential within a child and the appetite that they have for Islam. And it is through opportunities like these of youth lectures that you actually set the platform for raising and nurturing a new generation of khutaba, a new generation of speakers who will then go on to not only educate themselves, their families, but their communities and spread the light of Ahlul Bayt in the east of the world and the west of the world. So congratulations for all those, for the young boy and all other young boys who have been giving speeches before, young boys and girls, and those who are going to give after, for this initiative which is Mubarak. And if we can all appreciate this with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Shuf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first example of a verse where Allah Azza wa Jal condemns and rebukes those people who recite salat. Lest, and you see there is a hikmah behind everything. Not that today I feel because I recite all my salat on time and I recite them in jama'ah and maybe I recite the nawafil, lest I start to become arrogant and I start to think that I'm better than the other people around me. The warning. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَإِذَا نَادَيْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. And when you call them towards the prayer, اتَّخَذُوهَا حُزُوًا وَلَعِبًا. When you call the people to prayer, they take the salat to be a joke. They take the salat to be something very light. Notice the Quran is very precise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't say that when you call them for prayer, they don't show up for prayer at all. La, they pray. They stand in the lines of jama'ah or they pray at home. But the inside, the heart, the ruh, deep inside of them, they don't value the importance of that salat. It is something that is mechanical. It is an aspect of worship where people would not think twice mocking it. Mock the way salat is done. Mock the way other people pray. Regardless of whether his ruku or his sujood is on point or not, it doesn't matter. Whether the salat is ada or qada, it doesn't matter. Whether it is awwal waqt or not, it doesn't matter. Not only doesn't matter to him, but he makes fun of other people who are trying to be serious in their salat. So they pray, but they don't understand. They take lightly and they mock the importance of salat. Many times, somebody can fall into these issues, even unintentionally. We are 3-4 of us, for example. I don't know, 3-4 of the lads, of the boys, whoever, the sisters, they are hanging out together. The time of salat comes. One from the 3-4 says, "Jaan to namaz parwan," and the other 3-4 make fun of him or make fun of her. Allah, in this making fun, this is what the Quran is saying. وَإِذَا نَادَيْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ اتَّخَذُوهَا هُزْوًا. Try and make fun of somebody for trying to be super mullah, super religious, just because he's trying to uphold their salat. It might come out as a joke. It might not mean anything. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing out towards a reality over here. إِنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. This is a community, or these are people who do not have the capacity of the intellect. These are senseless people. They're mental people. They don't know. They're insane. For you find over here one example where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala condemns a group of people who uphold the salat. Yes, they pray, but they mock the sanctity, or they don't understand the sanctity of this salat. This is one example. May Allah protect all of us from being in this category. Second example, Suratul Ma'un. Suratul Ma'un in the 30th juz'ah. Look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes and rebukes the people who actually recite salat. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ara'ayta alladhi yukadhibu bid-din. Allah is saying, Azza wa Jal, have you seen those people who belie the religion? What type of people are these who belie the religion, who attack the religion? Yani alladhi yukadhibu bid-din, yani enemies of the religion. Ajib. Which type of enemy is this? Which thawb? Which garment is he coming? Which appearance is he coming in? Is he coming as an atheist? Is he coming as a mushrik? Is he coming as a kafir? What is he coming as? He's attacking Islam. What is he coming as? Look at the thawb, the appearance with which he's coming. فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ. These are the people who are harsh and neglect the orphans. بَعَدْ وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. When it comes to feeding the poor people, they are absolutely stingy. And they lack empathy. This is the summary of these two verses. The one who is harsh towards the orphan, and the one who is harsh towards those who are in poverty. Yani he has no sentiment for other people's positions of difficulty. Yani lacks empathy. Heart of stone. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. Allah.
فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. La'na on those who recite salat. Ajib. La'nat on those who recite salat. الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. Woe be upon those people who recite salat, but they are careless in their salat. So you find over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, there are those people who are enemies of the deen. But be careful, this enemy doesn't come to you as an atheist, as a mushrik, as a kafir. La, he comes to you as a Muslim. He comes to you as a person who prays. But outside his salat, there are two major characteristics that can help you identify how dark his soul is. And this is the fact that he doesn't have empathy towards the orphans and towards those in poverty. And in addition to that, as a result of that, الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. The word sahun over here is those people who are reckless in their salat. The first ayah was those who mock the salat. The first ayah is for those who downplay the sanctity of salat as a concept, as an institution from within the furu'ud-din. And in this second verse, there are those people who, apart from not having any empathy, they themselves are reckless in their salat. Reckless in a number of ways. It could be reckless in manners that is ma'nawi and maddi, yani apparent and internal. Apparent, yani external, they don't care about whether their wudu was correct or not correct, whether tajweed is correct or not correct, regardless of whether you prayed with attention or not. Sometimes, sometimes, subhanallah, it can actually, if you look at yourself, it can actually become comical. I'm talking about myself. Nobody takes offense. I'm talking about myself. Sometimes it becomes comical because I'm reciting Surah Al-Hamd. I'm saying, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. My tongue is saying that, but my mind is in my bank account, in my bank balance. And I'm thinking, mushkila, 100,000 issues. Brexit, Theresa May, whether she's going to stay, not stay. All these thoughts come in your mind. Ani, I'm thinking in my mind, my bank balance. My tongue is saying, Ya Allah, I trust in you. But my mind is saying, no, I trust in my Barclays bank account. Maskhara. Becomes comical, becomes nifaq. Sahih Allah. For you find over here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala draws out this concept of salat, in that if you are going to recite salat in the right way, number one. And number two, do not be fooled. Do not be taken for a ride by a person who claims to be religious just because he prays. Salat in itself means nothing. Salat as a mandhar, yani in its external appearance, is not the criteria for a person being a mu'min, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within the Quran is condemning people who recite salat. It's not the salat, it's what's behind the salat and the quality of that salat. Otherwise, shulu. Salat, Shimar al-La'in recited salat. Do you know Yawm al-Ashura, 11th of Muharram? Umar ibn Sa'ad al-La'in gathered all those people who were killed from his enemies, from his army, yani from the enemies of Ahlul Bayt. He gathered all of them because in the Maqtal it is mentioned that Ahlul Bayt, they left as prisoners. Imam Sajjad and Sayyidah Zainab and the rest of the women, they were taken as prisoners. They left from Karbala to Kufa on the 11th of Muharram after the time of Zawwal, after Salatul Dhuhr. And the Maqtal goes on to say that they reached Kufa on the 11th night of Muharram. Yani 11th night, yani what we would say is the 12th night, because the night always precedes the day. 11th day, 12th night. So when they reached the city of Kufa, what you would say the borders, yani the borders of the city were closed, and hence they spent the night in Masjid Hanana, or around the area of Masjid Hanana, which is one of the places of ziyarah that we visit in Najaf al-Ashraf. And then the 12th day of Muharram, Sayyidah Zainab and the Qafila entered into Kufa and everything happened. Actually, between the brackets again, this is another big point of musibah. Many times we feel 10 days of Muharram are finished. Once Sham Ghariban Majlis is finished, Salamun alaykum fi amanillah. Everything goes back to normal. Abadan la. Asl al-Masa'ib begins on 11th of Muharram. This is the real Masa'ib. From Muharram all the way, 11th of Muharram all the way till the time Ahlul Bayt comes back to Karbala on Arba'een. And you have historians who have even mapped out the entire route of how they covered the distance from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham and Sham back to Kufa in a period of 40 days, hence the Arba'een. But our point being what? Salat. Umar ibn Sa'ad recited Salat, 11th of Muharram. He gathered all those people who were killed by Ahlul Bayt, gathered all of them and they recited Salatul Mayyit over them. Shimr al-La'in, Ibn Dhil Jawshan, Yawm Ashura. You know the Maqtal says that when Sayyid al-Shuhada was lying on the plains of Karbala, and we have one of our scholars, Allama Shushtari, Rahmatullah alayh, he mentions in his book that Imam al-Hussein, just the wounds on his body, 1,400 sword wounds. The arrows and the spears and the stones were different. Not 1,400, 114, afwan. 114 sword wounds. And Allama Shushtari puts a footmark in his book and he says, how surprising, or is it from coincidence, that the number of sword wounds that are on the body of Imam al-Hussein are the same number of times that Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim is in the Quran. In the end, Hussein was the savior of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. 114 sword wounds, Imam al-Hussein, he's lying on the plains of Karbala. The Maqtal says that the enemies, every time they came forward to attack Imam al-Hussein, they couldn't, because of the nur that was emanating from his face. They were overcome with the nur. When nobody else can come forward, what does Shimr bin Dhil Jawshan do? He says to the people, the time of Salatul Asr is dawning, kill Hussein so we can pray Asr. Ya laha min salat. What is there in this salat which you have recited after killing Imam al-Hussein or killing the message of Imam al-Hussein? Walid, mashallah, was so religious. In Masjid al-Kufa, recited salat in a state of intoxication and made Salatul Fajr 4 rak'at. You want to be spiritual? Yalla spiritual. Muawiyah, mashallah, was such a big salat reciter. He made Salatul Jum'ah on Wednesday. Ajib, Muawiyah made Salat al-Jumu'ah, which is called Friday, on Wednesday. You don't know what is more Ajib, Muawiyah reciting the Jumu'ah on Wednesday or the people following him in Salat on Wednesday. And this is a big lesson in life and a big lesson in deen. Corruption of the deen hits hardest from the inside, not from the outside. I don't want to enter into any sensitive topic or something that might offend anybody. But how much fitna in the deen has been created by those people who recite salat? Sahih Lola. In fact, what has happened is in tarikh, in history, salat has been used as a shield by the munafiq who attacks the deen, just so that he can hide his evil intention, so that he can hide his cover. He will stand in front of the people and recite salat, because the people will say, "Na na, namaz parwa waro che bana din no dushman kya thi nikre." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Baba, Quran is saying something different." The mizan of a person is through the Quran. Now, I don't want also for people to take home the message and say, salat is not important, and Map said salat is not important, and from tomorrow, Samahat Sheikh Ali Samoja says nobody showed up for Salatul Jama'ah. Abadan la. What we are saying is that salat and the validity of salat and the character of a person is judged by the quality behind that salat. It's the quality inside of that salat. The action is an action law. Throughout history, munafiqs have used salat as a tool to protect themselves. They show people that they pray, and from inside they create the biggest of fitnas and destroy the deen in its entirety. Yazid was against salat? No. When Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam was wanted to give the khutbah in the darbar, and Yazid wanted to stop Imam Sajjad such that the people don't listen to him, what did he do? Resorted to salat. What did he do? Told the muaddin, yalla, go and give adhan. So salat has also been abused as an institution by people to either gain some sort of social, religious status, but it's a good shield to keep in front of you as you destroy the religion. We have even hadith of Imam al-Rida salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, where he says, be careful of those people who destroy the religion. And this hadith goes, Ruwaida, be careful of those people who recite the salat, and be careful of those people who pretend to have taqwa, and don't be deceived in your deen. Don't let anybody take away the wilaya of Ali Muhammad and that hubb of Ali Muhammad from you, or try and discount the fada'il of Ahlul Bayt, and just because he prays you think, no, he's right. Allah, Muawiyah prayed salah. In either case, so you find that these are two examples where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points out in the Quran that there is a category of people who recite salat, but Allah Azza wa Jal actually condemns them. So, in order for us, we need to think and we need to see ourselves. Which category are we in? Are we in this category or not? The actions that we perform outside of the salat affect our salat and the validity of the salat. Now you come and you see, these are the people who are condemned. Who are the people, or which type of salat is a salat which is praised and accepted by Allah? So we come into a little bit of positivity as well. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Before we continue, based on these two verses or three verses of the Quran, from the gent side, is there any questions? We have one person to start the question, and inshallah it will give confidence to everybody to start. Samahat President, you have question? No. From the sister side, if there's any question, please feel free. I know it's not something that is regular in the middle of a majlis that you would ask questions, but so it becomes a little bit more interactive. I think maybe tomorrow what we can do is we can have a mic, one on the men's side and one on the women's side. Whoever wants to ask a question, then it's hearable, it's audible, if it's possible. Any questions from the women's side? No. Khair, inshallah. Tayyib. Salat, which is acceptable. What is the character when Allah, remember our initial verse is what? The quality of the mu'min are those who seek inner strength through salat. But which salat? Not the salat of the people who are condemned, the salat of those people who are praised. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says within the Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the verse is Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse number 2. So to begin from the beginning of the verse, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Qad aflahal mu'minun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes a declaration, indeed the believers are victorious. Shay'un Jameel. It's a beautiful nukta over here, and this is from the Fadail of Amirul Mu'mineen as well. Historians mention that when Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam was born in the Kaaba, and Rasulullah entered into the Kaaba to hold Amirul Mu'mineen in his hands, Amirul Mu'mineen opened his eyes. The first person that he saw when he opened his eyes in the arms of the Prophet and saw the face of the Prophet. Our historians mention that as soon as Amirul Mu'mineen opened his eyes and looked at the blessed face of the Prophet, Amirul Mu'mineen recited this verse of the Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Qad aflahal mu'minun. And Rasulullah looked at Amirul Mu'mineen and smiled and said, aflahu bika ya Ali. If they are successful because of them following you, ya Ali. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Tayyib, kad aflaha al-mu'minun. The mu'minun are victorious, successful in the dunya as well as the akhirah. Which one of us doesn't want to be successful? All of us want success in this world and in the akhirah. Allah has made a declaration, the believer is successful. Tayyib, why are they successful? Or who are those who are successful? الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Those in their salat feel a level of khushu'. Khushu' yani a certain type of aura, a certain type of fear as a result of the acknowledgement of the grand maqam of your Creator. Does this pass through your heart when you say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen? Does this pass through your heart when you say, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim? Do you feel that shiver when you say, Maliki Yawmiddin? This is the salat which Allah Azza wa Jal praises and says, this is the salat that has quality inside of it. Salat is not just a set of mechanical actions, mujarrad, just recited with the tongue, followed by a certain number of sequences, la. It is the tongue uttering words that it feels deep inside the heart. This is the meaning of khushu'. And how to develop khushu', mashallah, is an entire plan on its own. It's something that is attainable. The most simplest way to attain khushu', because khushu' has levels, the simplest way of attaining this is to pay attention to the translation of what we recite in salat. Yarhamakumullah. Salat, attention. Just the translation. When you are saying Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, you're saying praise be to Allah. And the more you train yourself as that translation runs through your mind and you get to a level, it's like training for a marathon. You got to pace yourself to get to a certain strength or to a certain level. But as soon as you have that translation buckled, then what happens is the next stage when you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, as you are uttering this with your tongue, you find that all the bounties or a number of bounties that Allah has blessed you with just flash through your mind. And you feel that that alhamd truly is a sincere alhamd that comes out from the bottom of the heart. This is one. Those who have khushu', they feel this aura and they feel this fear as a result of understanding the grand maqam of Allah Azza wa Jal. Fear, by the way, is something that is positive and something that is negative. This is a bahat on its own. Tayyib. And perhaps the last verse of the Quran, and then we move on. Example of those whose salat is valid. Surah Al-Ankabut, verse number 45. Look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says towards the last half of the verse. إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْحَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ. Salat is that institution that acts as an obstacle that prevents you from committing sins. Allah. Many times I ask myself, is my salat accepted or not? How do I know if over the last 20, 30 years my salat Allah has accepted or not? Do I have to remain in a state of suspense until I enter into the qabr and Munkar and Nakir come and say, brother, bad luck, none of your salat was accepted? Is it going to be a shock in the qabr? La. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a mizan. Enter, before you enter into the qabr, before your time comes, you now at this point know whether your destination is Jannah or Jahannam. You at this point know whether your salat has been accepted or not. How do I know? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that the salat which is accepted is a salat that acts as a shield and prohibits you, prevents you from committing sins. I've just finished my Salat Maghrib. Having completed Salatul Maghrib, if the first thing that comes out of my mouth is ghiba, I know there was something wrong in this Maghrib and Isha that I've prayed. As soon as the Salatul Dhuhr and Asr has finished, thank you, as soon as Salatul Dhuhr and Asr has finished, I've gone and stolen somebody's right. I know there's a problem in my salat. As soon as I finish Salatul Fajr, and I get into a fight with my wife because the mayai was not cooked properly or this or that, akid, there is a problem in that Salatul Fajr. Our actions around the time of salat determine whether that previous salat was accepted or not. Now I should not have any doubt. From here we understand a number of things. Salat as an institution is supposed to have a tangible effect on my behavior. So if I was supposed to map out a progress chart, if I was supposed to put out a progress chart and monitor my behavior together with my salat, there has to be positive changes in the way I interact with other people. And we are not saying that person should now get discouraged and say, okay, now my salat was not accepted, I'm not going to pray at all. Abadan, it's a continuous, this is a journey. You're aiming for perfection. We are a sporting community. So inshallah we understand that you have a batsman who's trying to make his debut. Inshallah Nairobi Jaffa Sports Club still has the same glory that it used to have back in the day. You're trying to make your mark as a batsman for the first 5 or 6 games that you play. You might get, you're a batsman, you get bowled at 0, you get bowled at under 10. Does that mean you give up your cricket career altogether? La, you try and you net twice as hard until the next chance you are selected, you will go out and you'll score that 100. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was Azharuddin, probably in his biography, when he was trying to make his debut either into the Indian cricket team or it was in the Ranji Trophy, I don't know, something like that. He had 9 scores of under 10s. And he had mentally put himself so strong that the next opportunity he gets is going to score 100. And he went and he scored 100. Same thing inside of salat. Person doesn't get discouraged. Okay, my salat has not been perfect all these years, but Allah has given me time. I'm alive today. What can I do today to perfect my salat and take steps to perfect the salat for the coming years or the coming days or the coming hours that I'm going to be alive? For salat is an institution, number one, has a tangible effect on your behavior, should have a tangible effect. And this is how you measure how your salat is, number one. Point number 2, look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. Seek inner strength. See, in today's day and age, regardless of whether it is Nairobi, whether it is Africa, whether it is Europe or it is North America, this is a common problem regardless of where you are in the economic bracket. From those who are the super rich to those who are living on the poverty line. Habibi, this is an issue that everybody suffers. You know what this is? Mental exhaustion. Mentally exhausted. You look at anybody and everybody, I shouldn't say anybody and everybody, majority of the people suffer from mental exhaustion. You are exhausted trying to find the rizq and survive in a fast-moving world. You are mentally exhausted from ensuring that you maintain a certain level or a certain standard of living. Mothers are mentally exhausted from the trials and the tribulations and the difficulty of raising children. mental exhaustion. You can work as hard as you want. There is no barakah in the rizq. At the end of the day, man, Bani Adam, insan gets drained out. Sahih Lola, or I live in a different world. Sah? Mental exhaustion. Emotional instability. Psychological issues that we face on a daily basis. One of the best and one of the strongest cures for this is salat. Because Allah is saying, Ista'inu, seek inner strength through salat. This strength that overcomes mental exhaustion. This strength that overcomes emotional problems and being drained out is through salah. And suddenly you start to look at salat from a different institution altogether. What does the phrase Sami Allahu liman hamida ever have to do with mental exhaustion? It has a lot to do with mental exhaustion. We just have to take the right steps to understand salat for what it truly represents. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
From the tragedies of Karbala, it is narrated that Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida would hold majalis of Imam al-Hussein on the days of Ashura. One of the days, he called one of his companions by the name of De'bil, and he said to him, O De'bil, will you not recite a eulogy? Eulogy yani marthia or nawha, for my grandfather Imam al-Hussein. And from this we have a dalala that Ahlul Bayt and Imams used to encourage people to recite marthia and nawhas in the way of Imam al-Hussein. It says, O De'bil, will you not recite a eulogy for my grandfather Aba Abdullah, the one who was killed and who was oppressed in the lands of Karbala? De'bil stood up in the majlis. The narrations mention that Imam al-Rida put a partition in the middle and he asked for the women of the house to sit on the other end and to weep over Aba Abdullah. De'bil stood up and began to recite poetry, eulogizing Ahlul Bayt, until he got to this point of a poem. De'bil recited this poem. The narrations mention that Imam Rida, when he heard this, he wept and he wept until Imam Rida fainted. Allahu Akbar. What did De'bil recite? De'bil says, Afatimu law khiltil Husayn mujaddalan wa wayla wa kad mata atshanan bishatil furati. De'bil says, if Fatima to Zahra, Allah, if Fatima would have come to Karbala and if she would have seen the mangled body of Imam al-Hussein. De'bil uses the word mangled because when they trampled on the body of Imam al-Hussein, they broke every bone in the body of Aba Abdullah. De'bil says, what if Fatima came to Karbala and what if she saw the state of the body of Imam al-Hussein broken to pieces, and the fact that he was killed thirsty while he was at the bank of the Furat, what would Fatima do? De'bil says, إِذَا لَلَتَمْتِ فَاطِمُ وَجْهَهَا وَجَرَتْ دَمَ الْعَيْنِ بِالْوَجَانَاتِ. De'bil says that if Fatima would have seen this, Fatima would begin to beat her own face out of grief for Aba Abdullah. When Imam al-Rida had Fatima would beat her face, Imam Rida fainted. And it is as if that Imam Rida remembered that this is that same Fatima whose face was slapped on the nights of Saqifa. This is that Fatima whose Muhsin was made shaheed in the way of Wilaya. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. اللهم إنا نسألك بحق أهل بيت النبوة وبحق أبا عبد الله الحسين اللهم عجل لولينا الفرج. We pray to Allah by the Sheikh of Imam al-Hussein to hasten the reappearance of Imam al-Hujjah. We pray to Allah Azza wa Jal by the sake of Imam al-Hussein to forgive us our sins on a night like this. We pray to Allah by the sake of Imam al-Hussein to accept our sawm on a day like this. We pray to Allah Azza wa Jal by the sake of Imam al-Hussein. Mu'mineen and mu'minat who have come here, who are following these majalis, Ya Allah, do not let them leave until and unless you have fulfilled their hajat. Ya Allah, mu'mineen and mu'minat who are not in the best of health, by the sake of Sayyid al-Shuhada, you grant them shafa'ah. Ya Allah, marhumin and marhumat who have passed away, by the sake of Imam al-Hussein, you make their graves into a garden from the gardens of Jannah. Ya Allah, grant us the opportunity to perform the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein in the dunya and to gain his shafa'ah in the akhirah. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Yaqulu Allah ta'ala fi kitabihi al-hakim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. The revolution that is about to happen. A revolution that is going to change the manner in which this world exists and the manner in which this world operates from every possible conceivable dimension, be it political, be it financial, be it social. You are at the door of a revolution, whether you understand it or not.